Lyle, L-Y-L-E, Muhammad, M-U-H-A-N-N-A-D.
Okay. And Mr. Muhammad, tell us why you were here today and what is your concern?
Well, we're here because people keep reaching out to us to find out what is our stance on the gun violence that's taking place in our community, and our stance continues to be the same. We represent a healing and justice coalition of organizations and individuals that have been overlooked and underfunded when it comes to dealing with the root causes of violence in our community. We're not going to rest our way out of this situation. And with the monies that are coming into the community right now from the federal level and the hundreds of millions, we just want government to know that we're watching. And we want the public to know as well, which is why I want Vivian to come up right now. I want her to read into the record the hundreds of millions of dollars that are coming right now that could be spent on transformative work in gun violence.
If I could, first of all, what about the roughly $10 million that's going to be made available, from the renaming of the American Airlines Arena? What is your desire to see done with that money?
It's the same thing. The pockets of money, political deals don't need to be made, political egos don't need to be in the way. People who know what needs to be done on the ground need to be properly supported. So I want you to read this into the record.
Amy Masalia, I'm with Dream Defenders. I've been with Dream Defenders for 8 years.
Sorry, last name?
Masalia, A-Z-A-L-I-A. So as a lot of you know, Dade County is going to be expected to receive $500 million through President Biden's American Rescue Plan. We want to advocate that $30 million, or 6% of these funds, goes to community-based violence prevention and trauma recovery. So like you mentioned, we're part of the Healing and Justice Coalition, not alone, and there's a lot of money to be spent. Right now, Miami-Dade County and local cities in the country are going to get the ARP funds. City of Miami is going to be receiving $139 million. Miami Gardens is going to be receiving $27.39 million. North Miami is going to be receiving $19.9 million. Homestead is going to be receiving $20.4 million. Florida City is going to be receiving $4.95 million. And Opelika is going to be receiving $6.68 million. And like I mentioned, we're not alone. So the people that have signed on to wanting resources for the community and wanting programs to get funded are Community Justice Project, Brothers Life of Brothers for Life, Florida Rising, supporter of RGT Foundation, Healing and Justice Center, supporter of RGT Foundation, board members of RGT Foundation, Roots Collective, Frederick Wright, Touching Miami with Love, Affirming Youth, supporter of RGT, so there's a lot of people here from supporting RGT Foundation, Circle of Brotherhood, Beyond the Bars, Crime Survivors for Safety and Justice, the Miami chapter, Change the Beat, Black Men Build, Dream Defenders, Women with the Broken Heels, and Small Trust Survivors, and Miami Dream Defender Squad. So like I mentioned, we're not alone. Right now with the Healing and Justice Center, we're doing a lot of different programs already in the community. There's a lot of things already happening in relation to violence, in relation to gun violence. We're doing trainings with teaching people how to manage gun wounds in relationship to the timing that it takes paramedics to get to black neighborhoods versus getting to white paramedics. We're doing legal services to be getting people out of jail that are in relationship. Right now, we just were able to get someone out of second-degree murder. We're doing cases around doing youth programming and doing counseling and being able to do mental health. So there's a lot of programs that need to be funded, and there's a lot of programs that are already doing this work. So if the funding were to be able to move, I think that's the most important thing that we're asking for.
Can you make it simple? What is it that you're asking for?
Once Dr. Henderson will make it clear, right? We definitely want to make sure we hear from Dr. Henderson.
So answer the question?
No.
Okay.
Back up.
So what was your question again?
Well, first of all, can we get your name, sir?
Sure, I'm Armand Henderson. I'm a physician at University of Miami, director of health programs there, and also a part of the Healing and Justice Coalition.
Yeah, it was you who the police officer came up and gave a bad time to and put you in cuffs. Is that you?
That's correct. Yeah. But the focus is really on the fact that communities are suffering due to gun violence, and we can't just have an approach in which we increase the amount of police on the street, because it's not going to solve the problem. Jails are not big enough to put in all individuals that are experiencing gun violence, and really we should look at it from a trauma perspective, from a public health perspective. We have to get to the root causes of why gun violence occurs in our neighborhood. They are grossly underfunded. We're not listening to community-based solutions. Public safety is different when it comes to dealing with people in urban communities. you can't just increase the amount of police. And so what we're asking for is to increase access to services, to listen to the voices of survivors. I don't know if you've seen, the other day, there was a gentleman, a father, who was pushed out of the way from the camera and not being allowed to speak. We should allow survivors to speak at all costs. And so with that said, the Healing Justice Coalition is a group of organizations, which you've heard, who are basically looking at gun violence from a public health perspective. We're looking at healing, therapy sessions, teaching individuals of that over the last 2 years. But also, CAHOOTS program, Alternative to 911, as I mentioned, therapy sessions, etc. And so really what we're asking for is the county to really take a look at and do a critical appraisal of the funds that they've already gotten to decrease the amount of gun violence in the neighborhood. And has it worked? And the answer, in my opinion, is no. And so we recently took a trip, individuals in this coalition, to Newark, in which they have a community street team that is outside of the police, that has been able to decrease homicides by 51%. 51%, even during an uptick in violence that we've seen during coronavirus related to the pandemic. And so we have a street team here that's similar to that, and it's called the Peacemakers. They are grossly underfunded and undermined.
What does Mayor Levine Cava or any other of the county commissioners who are going to oversee how the money is distributed, what do they say when you speak with them about these programs, these community-based programs?
Well, all too often, the right things are said and the right things are not done. I actually was contacted by the county to be a part of a panel to decide to have some input on her peace and prosperity plan.
Yeah.
But we've been putting together a community wellness plan before the county since 2018, and it still hasn't been properly looked at, vetted, or funded. So it's not about what people are saying, it's about what they're going to do.
Yeah. So are you part of the peace and prosperity plan? Do
We
you
don't
think
know.
It has value?
We won't know until it's released. That's why today is so important.
Yeah.
We didn't want to wait until after. We wanted our elected officials, and we love you if you're doing right by us. If you're being scandalous by us, may God bless you with what you deserve. But what we're saying is we have our eyes on you right now. There's never been a time like this before in the history of our county where there are actually monies that are going to be available and people who know what to do to eradicate the type of violence you see in our community. Not just hold a press conference, an ambulance chase, and wait for the next shooting.
I also want to mention that, and I want to allow Trina the ability to speak as well, that we actually have a proposal which we're putting forth to the mayor. We have a letter directly to the mayor, Levine Cava, that we're submitting today. We have an op-ed that's coming out that will talk about the plans that we have for these funds for community-based solutions to anti-violence initiatives that are grassroots, not just grass tops. And our proposal that we're submitting directly to the mayor that we think deserves serious, a follow-through. Because again, as Brother Lau mentioned, we've been here before. We have the answers. So, go ahead.
Trina Harris, Vice President of Touching Mama Love, an Overtown business owner and resident of the community of Overtown. I am sick and tired of our communities being overlooked by our local government. They are patching money to organizations that are not on the ground and that's not doing the work.
Not at all.
We have to make a change. It is too many deaths that are happening in our community. Continuing to fund organizations that are not on the ground doing the work, that know the community, that are on the streets dealing with the shooters, that's a problem. We need some reform.
Give us an example. Who is getting money from the city, the county, from the feds, that is not really doing the work that you think needs to be done?
The police,
So,
for starters.
so one, the police and organizations that are connected with the policing. So I had an opportunity to speak with one commissioner last week, and he said out of his own mouth that he knows some of the organizations that are being funded, that funds that are allocated currently that are going to go, that's supposed to reduce violence, that's supposed to hire youth, are not going to make a difference. And that is frustrating as hell. Because he said that he is only one voice.
Which commissioner was this?
Commissioner Keon Hardiman.
If you will, tell me, what would you do? What would be the difference that you would make? How would you do it?
Looking at the model that is working in Newark, New Jersey currently, hiring the community, hiring folks that can mediate situations before they start, hiring youth that are not the typical ones that are going to be in programming. That I work for a children's organization. I've been involved in children's programming for 15 years, funded by the Children's Trust. These programs are not going to target youth that are pulling out AK-47s and spraying down parties and banquet halls. Those youth are not interested in coming to a program for 8 hours a day. They're not. That's not happening.
Well, how do you reach them?
The community, ex-offenders, folks that are that need to be employed, that need a third or fourth chance, that can't get a job right now, that can relate to those individuals, that can squash some of the beef, that can get to the root of the issues that are happening on the street. Arresting and raiding everyone, all you're doing is locking up, you're perpetuating a system that is just going to continue to lock black and brown individuals up.
Your first name is Trina?
Trina Harris.
Okay, thank you very much. And your group is, I've heard of it.
Touching Miami with Love.
Touching Miami with Love.
So, but what you're seeing here today in terms of the Healing and Justice Coalition, it's unprecedented. And what I mean by that is, see, we're not just working in silos anymore. We're organizations who all have a unique perspective to what it takes to solve the violence in our community. But we're willing to work together. But too often times, again, gun violence becomes a political football and people make decisions based upon relationships versus on a holistic plan. And so one of the things that the mayor's Peace and Prosperity Plan called for was a holistic approach to public safety. That's a direct quote from it. But has that been defined? Because if we just keep throwing programs around, we're not going to get at the root of what's going to eradicate violence, and that's the transformation of human beings. Not buildings, and not bringing national programs and trying to fit local programs into a box to make it work. So we're just saying, we pray with all of these funds that are coming right now. Nobody can use the excuse, well, where are we going to get the money from? And nobody can use the excuse that there aren't qualified organizations and people on the ground who aren't at the table for $1, but who knows what needs to be done. So our prayer is to do right and make these decisions carefully so that organizations like ours can do the work and eradicate the violence in our communities.
Without police and prisons.
Thank you. All right,
One thing, quick question. I know you guys definitely referred to this as a gun violence, as a public health issue. I also saw that Miami Police Chief referred to it as you actually foresee something where maybe not working together, but they succeed some of the power to you all, some of the power to you all to be able to police your own communities.
We have a good working relationship with Director Ramirez, and Director Ramirez will be the first one to tell you there's no way we're going to police our way out of this situation. When we went to Newark, New Jersey, Mayor Ross Baraka did something remarkable. He took, was it 5% of the budget from the police department and placed it directly into a coalition very similar to this, but allowed the coalition to continue to grow at that level and rate. I don't know if we have that kind of commitment here, but I know that Director Ramirez will tell you they can't do it by themselves. And by the way, we were the ones that introduced the language about a public health crisis, and we got pushback about that. Remember, what we're talking about, we've been working on for the last 15 years. But finally the language is being used. But is the money going to go to organizations that can eradicate the violence, or are we going to keep chasing ambulances? Are we waiting for the next press conference for the next shooting to say the same damn thing all over again when the solution is right here in front of us? And if this is not the solution, then vet us and help us grow to be the solution. If we're serious about the loss of life.
Sir, can we get a phone number where I can get in touch with you?
786-877.
Yeah, it is.
So obviously, there's a whole history behind these willingness to put money in local organizations. Do you see that happening here?
Thank you very much.
My answer to that would be just Barack Obama was elected president. We still had to hold him accountable. We love our leadership. but we still have to hold leadership accountable. And we'll see. The same thing could happen here. We'll see.
And we understand that it takes a group of commissioners to decide on what happens in our community. And if one have their hands tied with all of the violence that is happening in their district, the others need to be on board and make a change. And we guarantee you the commissioners that are in Hialeah right now, they're seeing a different story, that their community has made a national headline. So the communities of Overtown, Liberty City, Opalaka, we've always been in the headline. Now these other communities are getting in the headline. Now let's see what's going to happen. Let's see what action is going to be taken. But let's see if it's going to be happening the right way this time.
I also think it's important to mention that the funds that are coming down from the American Rescue Plan, they've been designated by the Treasury Department to go towards anti-violence initiatives like ours that are community-based. And then the second thing I want to mention is that these funds should go to a tertiary organization and not just to the mayor, because we understand that there's a lot of politics, as Brother Lau mentioned, behind gun violence. It should go to an organization that allows us, as community-based organizations, to approach them and actually get the money that we're asking for. And I want to mention again that Peacemakers has a program. Circle of Brotherhood has a program like the Newark Community Street Team that is grossly underfunded. And I know that Brother Lau may not say this, but when the Circle of Brotherhood, when the Peacemakers started working with police, the amount of individuals that sought services, social services, as victims of violent crime increased dramatically by 90%. And that can't happen. We need this now. We need it absolutely now.
What about monitoring the success of your program, making sure the money is well spent? You're open to that?
So the Newark Community Street Team has a national coalition of organizations across the country in which they're formulating a model to replicate what's going on there right now. We understand that it's a numbers game as well, and so we are thoroughly ready. We have epidemiologists, we have social workers, we have case managers, we have therapists, we have everybody we need on board to make sure that this initiative is successful. We also have the University of Miami behind these efforts as well. And so we are vetted community organizations that are trusted by the community. And if that's the case, that the money is coming and it can be designated towards these type of programs, then let us do our work. What's stopping us?
Can you get on the mic and say that?
Yes, I can.
A-R-M-E-N Henderson. Henderson. 610-715-998.
Maybe it's Azalia. AZA. Del Highway.
Yeah.
305 910 81.
Lyle Muhammad, 786-604-614.
And we have a budget that we're submitting to the mayor. We have a letter that's directly addressed to the mayor. And we have an op-ed that's coming out with all the organizations that Vivian mentioned.
And the letter was sent today to...
We're sending it today, so it's not published yet. So we're sending it out to local organizations, media outlets today.
I'll give you my card.
Yeah.
Channel 10, we'd love to see you.
We'll send you the budget. We'll send you the proposal. We'll send you the letter. And we'll send you the op-ed.
Dr. Give me your first name again.
Armen, A-R-M-E-N.
A-R-M.
Yes. Henderson. 610-715-998. Say anything further? Okay. Well, thank you for having us.
Yes, of course. Give me your number.
786-614. Thank you all. Thank you all.